We need to support politicians that will establish an industrial policy with the goal of reindustrializing the country. And in the near term, that will cause some economic hardship, but in the long term, it will be to our advantage. But we need to support anybody who is interested in reindustrialization because it is the issue. Nothing else, everything else is commentary. The size of state government, tax rates are irrelevant. Ohio's decline is a result of unfettered and deregulated trade. Period. I mean, ultimately, wouldn't you agree that's if you want to cut it to the quick, is the economy is not large enough. There's not enough real employment. The average person needs to have an opportunity for meaningful participation in the economy.
Well, that's true, but you can't forget about the expense of the war and everything as well. We're all over the world. We have our National Guard overseas, for crying out loud. I mean, it's crazy how many military bases we have all over the world, and it's no wonder people think we're some kind of Roman. It's just, I wish we could bring the troops home and open up all the bases that they've closed over the past 15 years or so, and let the soldiers come back to protect our country. Like, I think the Constitution set it up for that, and let them spend their checks in America. Now, wouldn't that stimulate our economy if all our soldiers actually came home? It's crazy. There's so many people that used to admire and look up to America, and now they seem to despise us. And we've done good things at times around the world and helped a lot of people, but there's a lot of folks right here in America that are unemployed and are struggling right now. And corporations with their record profits and everything, I don't begrudge anyone for wanting to earn a decent living, but there are people trying to pay their heating bill. They're trying to, buy groceries. They're not buying their medication because they choose to eat. So it's a mess. It's a complicated problem, but coming down on the American worker, not just in Ohio but around the country, isn't the answer.
I agree. And like I said, the bolder, bigger answer to all this, there's things you can change in policy and changes in the military and all that stuff and base structures, and there's a debate to be made there. But fundamentally, the decline of the industrial Middle West and Northeast is directly linked to deregulation of trade. Taking trade out of the sphere of foreign policy and national interest and putting it strictly in the hands of market forces. And market forces could care less if the United States exists or doesn't. Could care less if you're a prosperous country, or could care less about the Bill of Rights. The market has to be and is absolutely neutral on these issues.
So you're more worried about the WTO.
That's the source of all the problems is the deregulation of trade. That's where all the factories, all the jobs, we're still buying shovels and cars and washing machines, but the big value-added jobs are overseas now. And that could have happened 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. We had ports and ships, but our trade policies and tax policies were designed to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it's with all the corporate tax breaks, and I don't believe they're paying import tariffs like they used to.
But it'd be nothing compared to the taxes generated, tax base from a solid 1960s, 70s, 50s blue-collar core that formed Ohio's economic guts. I mean, at Cleveland and Toledo, Dayton, these were powerhouses. The biggest value added you could find. And that's a huge tax base, and what do? We built that greatest generation. They saved the world from fascism, survived the Great Depression. They got back from that, and they consciously built a great civilization. And since we hit a rough patch in the 70s, and so Reagan needed to overturn the whole system. I mean, that's the sad thing, is we had the game We had figured it out as a society. You know, we had rising and high standards of living, great levels of prosperity, and it was all built basically on industrialization. We need to reindustrialize. Now, it will be painful to do that in the near term, but in the long term, we'll be better off for it.
Well,
I'll support anybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green, whoever, if they are serious about reindustrialization, which will require modification of WTO and all that. All the trade agreements have to be modified.
see, some people argue that those jobs have dried up, and the reason we don't have them is because of EPA regulations and all of this stuff.
It's chump change compared to paying somebody $15 an hour versus 50 cents a day. It's, you know, the cost of compliance relative to the labor differential is chump change. And you can also look in China, for example, they have state banks that serve state interests, not shareholder interests. And so it's kind of a nod and a wink capitalism. You really have to pay those loans back. If you're like the steel, if you want to look into this further, the steel industry has articulated this for about 3 years. They feel that in steel, which is a heavy object, takes a lot of money to ship, the labor differential is eaten up in transport. But the big advantage of, let's say, Chinese steel is they are capitalized through a state bank. Do they really have to pay those loans back? Do they really have to pay that interest rate? Because the state banks are serving a state interest. And again, you can look into the steel industry has all this stuff. But reindustrialization, it's that simple.
I saw my father. I mean, he lived through the American Dream period, and I've been giving concessions since the '80s. You know, and everything else, the standard of living has gone up and up, and wages haven't kept up with it all. And then you get people that give you a hard time because you want a cost of living increase, but they don't seem to be legislating any way to keep costs down.
I mean, Germany is a great example. You want to talk about a high regulatory country. You know, modern Western Europe makes us look like the Gilded Age, laissez-faire Gilded Age. I mean, Europe is heavily regulated, more regulations than we could even imagine. In Germany, what is its leading economic engine? It's high-end export manufacturing. It's completely, I'm not saying we want to become Germany or Western Europe, but if you want a proof of principle of where the future may lie, is that high value-added manufacturing. And it can be done profitably and successfully in a very high regulatory environment, as Germany demonstrates.
One of the ironies is that the people that argue that the industry in America will never be what it was, they're the ones that have been promoting like higher tech jobs and everything. But how, when you're cutting educational,
they're all going to go,
no
but
sense.
They're going to go overseas anyways.
Well,
you know, India is full of great engineers. China is now really producing excellent engineers. I mean, all that high-tech stuff, that can go right overseas as well. You know?
All I know is if they lose qualified teachers, our youth of America is going to suffer.
Yes, I agree. Hey, I went to a great public school, Westville North in the 80s. Killer public school.